encouragement that allows for it to happen. As you see, well, most of us, across from you, the double parking even years.
So let's make sure we get those 150 miles of new dedicated bus lanes, yeah? It's law, not just something we want out of oversight power, not just to research bus riders, but make sure the laws are enforced at the New York bus line.
So welcome to the Better Buses relaunch. We are standing exactly where we launched our first campaign in 2016. Since then, we have been fighting tooth and nail for better buses citywide. We worked with and fought against the last administration to implement bus lanes and busways, a bus network redesign, and all-door boarding. We saw many of these initiatives play out and are still waiting for more. As a new administration enters office, and many of you are here today, it's a new day for our bus campaign.
Yes.
Even though we saw more changes for buses during the last administration than ever, it was not nearly enough to make significant changes in bus speeds and reliability that riders deserve. For all the new elected officials here today, now is your chance to make a real difference for bus riders in your districts. Riders Alliance has spent hours talking to bus riders at their bus stops, and their stories are all the same. Riders are showing up late to work, to their appointments. They can't access the bus because cars are illegally parked in bus lanes and are waiting ungodly amounts of time in extreme weather conditions for their bus to arrive. Riders deserve better. We have new leaders, and it's time for better buses. There is a new spirit of collaboration in the air, and we need both the mayor and the governor to work together to give bus riders the network they need. We need the mayor to deliver and implement an ambitious streets plan that will give buses priority on our city streets. Council members and our borough president champions, we are calling on you to hold the mayor accountable to these goals and to make sure riders in your communities have a voice. We need the governor to invest in 6-minute bus service, to implement network redesigns that vastly improve our bus service, and to move all-door boarding forward as quickly as possible. Now is the time. So next we're going to hear from longtime Rider Alliance member and bus rider George Bettman.
George! Got it, George?
Yeah, just give me a second.
Yeah.
Now what do I do? Move this down? No? Okay. Hello guys, my name is George Bettman and I am a subway rider and bus rider coming from Canarsie. I've been a Riders Alliance member several years now, and I'm happy to share my story with everybody today. The biggest issue with buses is accessibility. Buses need to reliably pull up to the curb to allow the mobilely impaired to board, like myself. I have trouble with the steps, and when the bus pulls up and stays in the middle of the street, I can't climb those steps to get to the bus. Also, during the pandemic, buses were supposed to let the elderly and disabled enter through the front of the bus, yet drivers were not allowing it. Back when I worked, I also was concerned about frequency, since I used the buses late at night and I counted the bus would mean an hour's wait. I think what is really needed is bus lane enforcement.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
This way, buses weren't parked where as cars weren't parked where the buses were, the buses could pull up to the curb and I could get on with ease. The last administration was the best for buses, but it wasn't nearly enough. The new administration needs to show that they really care about bus riders and put in bus priority projects that will help riders like me. Thank you for hearing my story today, and please hear us when we say we need better buses now. All right, better buses now.
Thank you so much, George. Next, we will hear from Bus Rider and Riders Alliance member, Pedro Valdez Rivera.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much. My name is Pedro Valdez Rivera. I am 30 years old and live in Bed-Stuy, Nitro Building with my family since January 2016.
All right, Brooklyn.
Yep. I have been a member of the Riders Alliance since June 2013 and have been fighting for better buses ever since. Once a week, I take the B15 bus for a round trip from my residence to my local Chase Bank to pay my own credit card bills during off-peak hours. The majority of the time, there is bus bunchy at my stop, which means 2 or even 3 buses are there at the same time. That means much longer wait times if you happen to just miss the bunch of buses at my stop. I also take the B38 and B54 buses to downtown Brooklyn for medical appointments. When I take these routes, there's so much double parking around the areas of business, the bus often has to let us out of the street because the bus is not able to reach the curb. I am encouraging both Governor Hochul and the MTA to add more buses during off-peak hours. I am also encouraging Mayor Adams and the DOT to quickly implement a transit signal priority along the busiest routes and more enforcement to discourage double parking along bus lanes. Both agencies must work together to make a bus network that riders like me deserve. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pedro. Next, we will hear from Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso.
Yes. Welcome to Brooklyn, everyone. How's everyone feeling today? I'm really excited because we got borough presidents from Queens and Manhattan here. Can we give them a round of applause? Brooklyn Borough President Mark Levine and I'm Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine and Queens Borough President Donovan Richards. I'm so happy to have them here. And I'm actually going to start by first talking about their boroughs and the fact that many folks, like in the outer portions of Brooklyn, need access to buses to be able to get to work. We've actually seen an increase in the amount of Queens residents coming to Brooklyn for work, and vice versa, Brooklyn residents heading to Queens to go to work. And the way that is going to work, north to south, is going to be through buses because we just can't necessarily build new train lines and subway stations overnight. That can be solved with better bus service. Then in Manhattan, we've seen the glory that is the 14th Street busway. We've seen an increase in ridership in 14th Street, specifically because they made it better. It's moving, it's actually working. If you build it, they will come. And it is proof through the 14th Street busway. And it is what we want to see throughout Brooklyn, Queens, and the rest of the boroughs here in New York City. We need to talk about accessibility. The double parking issue that we have in our city and the lack of enforcement that allows for it to happen. As you see, well, most of us across from you, the double parking even here in front of Borough Hall has made it almost impossible for buses to move. We have 3 buses that are just bunched up behind you. And these 3 buses at times have to leave people outside of the curb because of the double parking. If we had enforcement, immediate enforcement through cameras and other technologies, we would be able to fine and give summonses to these cars that are double parking. It'll discourage people from doing that and allow for people with accessibility issues to come on and off the bus in a responsible and safe way. Those are all things we need to start paying attention to here when it comes to the better bus route system. I recently talked to the MTA, and they left that meeting telling me, in summation, what I care about is buses, buses, and buses. So thank you all for coming here today. Let's do better, and I'm very excited about the campaign that we're pushing today. In Spanish, very quickly. Es un placer estar aquí en Brooklyn con nuestros presidentes de otros condados como Manhattan y Queens, aquí empujando para mejores movimientos sobre las guaguas o autobuses. Sabemos que en este momento no se están moviendo a una etapa que nosotros estamos esperando. También sabemos que no está seguro para la gente que está inmovilizada. Nosotros podemos hacer un buen trabajo moviendo carros fuera de la calle para dejar que los autobuses se puedan mover. Hoy estamos buscando para inversiones máximas de parte de Governor Hochul y el alcalde Eric Adams. Y en tiempo vamos a seguir nuestra campaña para asegurar mejores rutas para los autobuses. Muchas gracias y bienvenidos a Brooklyn. Thank you. Sí se puede.
Thank you, Borough President. Next, we will hear from Comptroller Brad Landers.
What do we want? When do we want them? What do we want? When do we want them? I'm New York City Controller Brad Lander. I was here in 2016 when we launched at Brooklyn Borough Hall when we launched the Better Buses campaign, and I am so happy to be back here at Brooklyn Borough Hall to relaunch the We Really Mean It Better Buses campaign. I've been to Manhattan and Queens a few times in between, and I'll be back, but it's awfully nice to be home in Brooklyn. When that campaign was launched, the New York City Controller's Office did a study that I urge people to go back and look at because it has a lot of useful information about buses from 2017. So it found, for example, that the average per capita income of bus riders is $28,455, well below, about a third below subway riders, a third below average New Yorkers. That's 75% of bus riders are people of color, 55% foreign-born. Buses are the way that working class New Yorkers get around, get to work, get their kids to school, go to school themselves if they're students. Buses are working class transportation in New York City. That study also showed, I think some people have in their minds that it's hard to speed up the buses because they're stuck in traffic. And it is true that dedicated bus lanes are critical, but it's also important to recognize that 20% of the time that buses, and actually let's look one step back, the average speed of the buses at that time was 7.4 miles per hour. That is too slow for our families to get it to get around. More than 20% of their time stuck at red lights, more than 20% of their time stuck at bus stops. So, all-door boarding makes less time at bus stops and more time moving. Transit signal priority, less time at traffic lights, more time moving. And dedicated bus lanes makes buses move through traffic faster and gets those working class families where they are going. Now we've seen in the pandemic how much more people needed buses. One of the great things in those early days was that the buses moved quickly, and when they were free, the essential workers could get where they were going on time. You could see very briefly a vision of what it might be like if we had first-class buses in New York City, and now it is our responsibility to get there. Let's be clear, no amount of finger-wagging is gonna change the fact that there's gonna be more remote work after the pandemic than there was before the pandemic. Not as many people riding the subway into and out of core Manhattan, but a lot more people working near home in the outer boroughs, needing buses to get there. So let's make sure we get those 150 miles of new dedicated bus lanes, yeah. It's law, not just something we want out here, so I promise you as New York City Controller, we'll be using our oversight powers, not just to research bus riders, but make sure the laws are enforced and the New York bus riders get the better buses and get where they're going. That's what I promised you today. And finally, just one bit of local, I have to conclude a little local business because I got my friends from the B71 bus campaign here. So let's just make sure when we get back to that Brooklyn bus redesign that we get what Brooklynites want, which is bring back the B71. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next, we will hear from Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine.
Thank you so much. What's up, bus riders? I know absolutely nothing about the B71 campaign, but I'm all in. Tell me where I got to protest. We're going to make it happen. Got that, Borough President? Can you give it up for the most amazing transit-loving Borough President in America, Antonio Reynoso? Donovan Richards is not bad either. I'm here to speak up for the unsung heroes of the mass transit system. The headlines about the subways. Subways are on the front pages of the tabloids. They're getting so much attention. But there are millions of New Yorkers who depend on our buses. And they are unacceptably slow in this city, and it threatens our mass transit system. In Manhattan, there are bus lines which are slower than walking speed. That is not hyperbole. There are bus lines along heavily used crosstown routes that are slower than walking speeds. No city can survive with the mass transit system that moves at that pace. There is a better way. Manhattan also shows there is a better way. Go to the 14th Street busway. This is not hypothetical anymore. We have living proof that we can make our buses faster and more efficient in this city and reap economic benefits as we have in Manhattan. But this is a big city, and we have much, much more work to do. We are here to call for the city to live up to what is now its legal obligations, which in this year requires 20 miles of additional bus lanes, which this year requires 750 new transit signal priority intersections installed. We cannot lose sight on this. We are here to call for all-door boarding, which will make our buses faster and will increase ridership, which will have a financial benefit. We are here to call for enforcement of the cameras on these buses to protect bus lanes, which only work if they have clear passage. We are here for piloting of protected bus lanes so that cars have no ability to obstruct passage of these buses. We can do this. We're already doing this in some parts of the city. We need to go to all 5 boroughs to rehabilitate this vital mass transit system at this critical moment. So say it with me now. What do we want?
Better buses!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Better buses!
When do we want it?
Now!
Let's go B71. Let's do this.
Thank you, Borough President. Next, we will hear from Queens Borough President Donovan Richards.
Thank you. Guess I'm supposed to join the B71 support line as well, but we got a lot of buses in Queens that still need a lot of work. Good morning, and it is an honor to be here. And first, I want to thank the Riders Alliance for having me here today to clearly and loudly demand better bus service in New York City. And as my colleague Antonio Reynoso put it, the outer boroughs are the biggest part of this city.
All right.
You know, I usually work at a different borough hall across the border in Queens.
All right, Queens is good.
But I felt it was critically important for me to get my passport stamped by Antonio and to come to Brooklyn to talk about a vital issue that impacts all New Yorkers, whether or not they ride a bus to work or to school. It is well known that much of Queens is a mass transit desert with limited access to subways, especially in the eastern portions of the borough. Because of this, Queens residents greatly rely on buses to get around. The problem is that New York City buses at $2.75 a ride are notoriously unreliable, overburdened, and painstakingly slow. That means that the working people who have no choice but to take the bus are burdened with having to accept this slow and unreliable service. These folks include the tens of thousands of essential workers who keep our city functioning, but are forced to rely on slow and unreliable buses to get them to and from work, as we saw through this pandemic. Right. This situation cannot be allowed to continue. The hardworking people who are forced to use our bus system deserve much better service than they are getting now. And if we are to protect our environment from greenhouse gas emissions and stop our roadways from being jammed bumper to bumper, we need to make bus service better, faster, and more reliable so that it becomes an attractive transportation option. And I want to commend the Bus Riders Alliance because we work collectively on the new Jamaica Busway, which has been a success. We work together on the Woodhaven bus lanes as well, which has been successful. Even when we had NIMBYism showing up at our front door, we showed when we stand up what that means for everyday New Yorkers. And to accomplish this, the MTA, to continue to accomplish this, we need the MTA and the city to work together to implement the changes that are needed to improve bus speed citywide. In short, they must follow through with plans to create much more busways and dedicated bus lanes, to redesign bus routes, to make service speedier and more efficient, and to implement all-door bus boarding. These changes are proven effective at speeding up bus travel times and at making bus service much more reliable. So they need to be implemented citywide sooner rather than later. That's why I joined with the Riders Alliance and my colleagues in government today, who are here calling on the MTA and the city to do what needs to be done to improve bus service in the city. Because each day we delay in implementing the changes means more pollution will be emitted, more traffic jams will be created, and more hardworking people will be forced to waste time while waiting for buses. Thank you so much for having me this morning. And once again, we're going to get this done. And we need the city to also put its money where its mouth is. We need congestion pricing to move so we can see these investments put back into the people's pockets. Thank you. Yes, I did.
Thank you, Borough President. Next, we will hear from Council Member Lincoln Ressler.
Welcome to the 33rd. It's great to be with you all. I feel like we're missing the fourth musketeer and Vanessa from the Bronx, but this ain't a bad three. Donovan and Mark and Antonio, the future of New York City is bright with these three at the helm as our borough presidents. And I think as Mark said, there is not an elected official in America who loves mass transit as much as Antonio Reynoso, so it is good to be at Borough Hall. And we are lucky to have Brad Lander as our controller, as the watchdog we need, holding the MTA and DOT accountable to make sure we get our bus lanes. I am proud to have been a member of the Riders Alliance since the organization was started a dozen plus years ago, and I'm proud to be a member every day since. The Riders Alliance has been the organization we need, mobilizing bus riders, subway riders to demand improvements, and we need to do more we absolutely do need to do more for the homeless as well. You know, we've been doing a lot on fair fares to try and expand access to low-cost fares, and we need to do more. So I really appreciate it. But I just, want to add as well, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. We got to do more. Fair fares has been a big win, and we're expanding it this year. Thank you so much. And the Riders Alliance was at the, I don't got one for you, but I'll get you after, sir. To give the Riders Alliance credit, they were the organization leading the way with CSS to demand fair fares so that working class New Yorkers, low income New Yorkers have access to half price Metro cards. But I'm going to be real with you all. I pretty much stopped taking the bus. It is faster to get on a bicycle and move around our streets than to get on a bus at this point. 7.9 miles an hour is the average citywide for bus service in New York. But across many of our areas like downtown Brooklyn that are congested, it's way slower than that. As Mark said, you can walk faster than ride a bus in many parts of New York City. It's not okay. And we know what needs to be done. We need to install cameras on every single damn bus in New York City. So if you're parked in the bus lane, you're getting a ticket. We need transit signal priorities at every single intersection along our bus lanes so that buses can actually fly and move and that traffic is slowing down for buses, not the other way around. And most of all, we need bus rapid transit and busways implemented across the 5 boroughs. When I worked for Mayor de Blasio, I was honored to be a part of the team that made the 14th Street busway happen. But we need crosstown busways on 34th Street and on many more streets to move across the gridlock that is Midtown Manhattan, and we need them here in Brooklyn. We need a real busway on J Street. We need real bus rapid transit to get us from North Brooklyn to downtown Brooklyn. And we should be thinking about new places for dedicated bus lanes and busways all across our city. 20 miles ain't enough. We gotta push DOT to go faster, go harder, so that working class New Yorkers, because let's be real, working class New Yorkers are disproportionately the folks that depend on bus service, so that working class New Yorkers have a real, reliable, fast way to get around. We can make this happen. Let's do it. Thank you all.
Sun shines in Brooklyn.
I got my plants all done. There's no sun on this side.
Thank you, Tabitha. Next, we will hear from Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee Executive Director, Lisa Daglian.
Thank you. Good morning. An investment in buses is an investment in equity. Better buses are better for everyone. Throughout the pandemic, throughout extreme weather, throughout many crises, buses have come through for all New Yorkers, including our essential workers. We need more bus lanes, more bus ways, and more enforcement, including the highly successful automated bus lane enforcement. Fewer than 20% of people are ticketed twice in bus lanes, and less than 10% get 3 or more tickets. ABLE should be made permanent and expanded, with the city and MTA having control over where cameras are placed. That's a bill in Albany that should be passed. Traffic signal prioritization and more accessible bus stops, along with bus redesigns that prioritize connectivity, are also key, and the MTA and DOT must work together to quickly implement them. Expansion of fair fares will help make buses an even better and more equitable option for more New Yorkers. Working together, the city, state, and MTA can help bring together and bring about a stronger, faster, and more equitable bus system for the riders who depend on them every day. What do we want?
Better buses!
When do we want them?
Now!
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we will hear from Strap Hangers Campaign Field Organizer Cecilia Ellis.
All right, hi everyone, thank you. I'm Cecilia Ellis. I am the campaign coordinator for the NYPIRG Strap Hangers campaign. Thank you for being here. At the Bus Turnaround Coalition, we are so excited at the prospect of Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul working together to get New York City bus riders moving forward. There's no limit to what can be done for New Yorkers when Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul work together. In New York City, the bus system is a necessary part of daily life for most New Yorkers. We depend on it to travel to and from train stations, our homes, our jobs, and our schools. At Strap Hangers, we work closely with college students who come from diverse neighborhoods, backgrounds, and circumstances, many of whom do not live on college campuses and rely on city buses to get them into their classrooms. Not only are students current contributors to the city's economy and culture, but they are also a part of the future investment. It is everyone's right to reliable transportation, and students' need for fast, reliable, and affordable bus service needs to be prioritized by the city. For example, I work in Queens at Queens College, and the Queens bus network redesign is an enormous opportunity for a better transit experience for all Queens riders, but especially students who know that they've missed too many classes because they missed the bus. System-wide changes need to be complemented with an increased bus operating budget in order to reach the system's highest potential. New York City bus riders and champions who support New York City bus riders needs champions who support 6-minute wait times, all-door boarding, and don't back down from ambitious plans in the face of opposition. Both Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul have the opportunity to provide massive wins for New York City bus riders in all 5 boroughs. Riders deserve fast, dependable transit and a system that is as remarkable as the city itself. The bus turnaround agenda covers a range of actions that can be taken by both the mayor and the governor because improving public transportation is a win for all New Yorkers. What do we want?
Better buses!
When do we want them?
Now!
Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. Next, we will hear from Vice President of Brooklyn Buses, TWU Local 100, JP Potafio.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I represent the bus drivers of Brooklyn and the maintainers. Just for a point of reference, Brooklyn bus service is the same size as Philadelphia. It's massive, and we move hundreds of thousands of people. So when we have an event like this, the Transit Workers Union is 100% behind it. Better bus service now, and that's what we need. And there's a few basic reasons why. First of all, it's probably one of the safest ways for people to get around the city. I just read an article in The Guardian that fatalities from car accidents, because the dip in transportation, people taking transit, has gone up 20%. Bus operators are professionals. They are the best operators in the world here in Brooklyn, and it's the safest way to get around. So we need safe passage. Bus rapid transit is essential. I've been fighting along these people since the inception of this fight, and we need to get these bus lanes freed up from double parked cars with license plates that are covered up. It just doesn't work. Also, Brad Landis pointed out the majority of people that take buses earn under $30,000. Local bus service, we should be looking at Boston. In Boston right now, they're trying to make local bus service free, and we think that's a real good idea. It's a time that's come, and we need it. I encourage that the governor and the mayor, both of them very friendly to transit, work with us. One of the things that I think is lost sometimes is that when there's bad bus service, who does the public take it out on? They take it out on the drivers. And the drivers and the passengers, we come from the same community. We are the same people. And when that tension occurs and they start fighting each other, that's not good. So please, we always got to remember the bus operator is not responsible for the traffic. And to give them the respect that they need, it's a very hard job. And their number one job is to make sure people get back and forth safely. So I'm very happy to be here. And I want the coalition to know that I will always be standing with them. And the strap hangers of New York City, I will always be standing with you and my bus operators, because together we can make bus service much better. So what do we want?
Better buses!
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, JP. Next, we will hear from League of Conservation Voters, Carlos Castell Croak, Associate for New York City Programs.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Carlos Castell Croak, and I'm here this morning in Brooklyn to stand with electeds, riders, partners, and advocates across NYC to call on our city and state leaders to prioritize the changes that bus riders need today. I want to thank the Borough Presidents who are here and the council members. I also want to thank our coalition partners and everyone who has supported this work. The Better Buses campaign will continue to advocate for improved service. And as a representative from the League, it is important to note that improving public transportation is a critical piece of protecting our environment. Transportation is a leading contributor to emissions, and that means we need to get people out of cars and onto cleaner options. But people need bus service that is reliable and that runs at reasonable speeds. They need to know that they can get to work and get there on time. We need better buses now to clean our air, rebuild our economy, and reestablish our transit system as a reliable way to get around the city. Thank you so much, and we want those better buses now, don't we, people?
Thank you, Carlos. Next, we will hear from Liam Blank, from Tri-State Transportation Campaign, Policy and Communications Director.
Good morning. In the wake of the pandemic, there's never been a more urgent time for the city and state to work together and deliver on improved bus service. Traffic congestion has roared back to pre-pandemic levels, and commuting patterns have shifted away from the traditional Manhattan-centric model, making efficient and reliable bus service all the more important, particularly in the outer boroughs. Buses must be given greater priority on city streets. We need a comprehensive network of dedicated bus lanes, and we need treatments like transit signal priority and all-door boarding to speed up commutes for millions of New Yorkers. We have made great progress in the years since this coalition was formed in 2016, but there is still a long way to go. Promises and half measures will not suffice. We are calling on Mayor Adams, Governor Hochul, and leaders of the MTA and DOT to expedite bus priority projects. The very basic functioning of the city depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. Next, we will hear from Cathy Price, Brooklyn organizer of Transportation Alternatives.
I'm the last speaker, so I hope I do an okay job bringing our collective message home. My name is Cathy Price, and I'm the Brooklyn organizer for Transportation Alternatives. Thank you to Riders Alliance for their leadership, and to all of all the partners and elected officials and bus riders who are here today and every day fighting for better buses. Streets are the single largest public asset in New York City. And if our streets are public, what is the best use of that public space? Is it for storing a few cars for free, or making space outside of a school for outdoor learning that hundreds or thousands of our neighbors can utilize? Is it prioritizing one commuter in a vehicle or 50 commuters on a public bus? Woo! Bus riders should be prioritized on our streets. And the best way to do this is by building protected bus lanes and car-free busways across New York City. By reclaiming our shared space from cars, as we've envisioned in the Transportation Alternatives NYC 25 by 25 plan, we can give all New Yorkers more efficient and sustainable ways to get around New York City. We're here to say today to city and state officials, and I have a toy to illustrate this point, my 8 and 10-year-old's toy. Stop playing around. New Yorkers know that a better bus system is within reach. We look forward to working with our partners at Riders Alliance and with Mayor Adams to deliver better buses in all 5 boroughs. What do we want? Better buses! When do we want them? Now! What do we want? Better buses! When do we want them? Now! Woo! Woo! Thank you.
That closes our press conference. Is there any questions?
We want to see more specifics from City Hall. We know that they supported the campaign goal and the mileage goal of in the Streets Master Plan, but we want to see where they are going to put the bus lanes, how they are going to provide the resources to the bus program at DOT, how they are going to keep bus lanes clear. All those specifics and details are what we need to see to know that the City Hall is actually committed to improving service. Anyone want to take a budget question?
I can only take, I want us to talk about state budget.
Not that we can speak to.
In Albany, there is a piece of legislation that would allow the city and the MTA to decide their own fate when it came to ABLE and to bus lane enforcement cameras. So that's a piece of legislation that's being discussed, and that would really improve the bus lane system, and allow buses to go faster, to really improve enforcement, because it has shown, aside from the serial offenders, like the trucks that park and use it as a way of doing business, that people don't get more than people who get more than 2 tickets only less than 20% of the time, and less than 10% of the time do they get 3 or more tickets. So if the city and the MTA are empowered to have the fate of the cameras in their own hands, that will go a long way toward improving the system of enforcement.
Actually, Borough President Reynoso is having another press conference right after this about buses as well. So we're asking the press to stay and hear from those folks. I think it's about parking minimums. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.